Hello there. Today I want to go over some of my thoughts on replica lightsabers, some of the pros and some of the cons, and I'll get into a little bit of detail why I don't personally own any replicas. These are actually all my son's. So first I want to get into, what is a replica? Well, of course, a replica is a saber based off of a character in the films, so it's more or less canonically accurate. So this, of course, is Anakin's lightsaber. Specifically, I believe this is from episode 3, so it has the same grip style as episode 3, and it's been slightly modified when it was wielded by Luke in the first Star Wars movie, and then later Rey in the sequels. So that's pretty much what a replica saber is. This is a replica saber. And this is a Force FX lightsaber. I've had this thing for years, and you can kind of see that it's starting to get some blemishes because I think this thing's almost 20 years old. But otherwise, pretty good. The next one that I have is actually from Ultra Sabers. This is what they call a Fallen. I modified this with a core from Crimson Dawn. And then I have also from Crimson Dawn a Dark Saber. Now this has some clear modification. I'll get into that in a moment. But this is, of course, based off of the Dark Saber wielded in the Clone Wars and then later in the Mandalorian show. So some of the pros for replica sabers. So, of course, typically it's got that nostalgia feel. I mean, this is the first lightsaber we ever saw on screen in the first Star Wars movie. So there's that kind of nostalgic feel to actually holding that in your hands. Then there's, of course, maybe you identify with a character. I mean, with the Jedi Fallen Order game, you actually play as Cal Kestis. And so kind of being able to wield his saber is a pretty cool thing. So maybe you identify with a certain character, so you want to have that little piece of them. And then you get the quality. So the quality of replica sabers is typically a little bit better than just your basic spinning sabers. Of course, that is going to vary from company to company. But one of the things that you'll see with replicas is, things like, these T-grips on this particular one. The finish has got a nice nickel finish. I don't know if that shows up on camera as well as the difference of this, which is just brushed aluminum. But typically with replicas, you'll get those more advanced finishes, more detail, and that sort of thing. And so that's a pro for replicas, is that there's a little bit more love involved in the creation of the replica versus, a standard model that a company may make. Now I'm going to get into the cons. And there's actually 3 main cons. There's a couple more, but there's 3 main ones that I like to chalk it up to: cost, comfort, and customization. So cost, of course, because replicas have all of those pros and there is a little bit more quality involved in them, they are typically 2 to 3 times more expensive than a company's, standard model lightsabers, even though they're probably going to have the similar internals and features. So, for example, I think Crimson Dawn has a Graflex version that, is 2 to 3 times more than just the regular, like, Banshees or Shades or, just your entry-level sabers, if you will. So you could get 2, maybe even 3 sabers for the cost of 1 replica, and most companies have a way to couple those together, so you could even get a double-bladed lightsaber for cheaper than a single-bladed replica. So that's one con. The other is comfort. Now that's not always the case, but a couple of examples are on this. You have this box here, which it's not terribly uncomfortable, but if you're wanting to hold it on like a good balance point, which is right here, you've got these fins that are kind of potentially in the way. You've got this right here that might get in the way if you're going to spin. The Graflex and many other lightsabers my favorite replica lightsaber would be Luke Skywalker's Return of the Jedi green lightsaber, and they have these activation boxes that, if you're trying to do some spinning, that can kind of, get in the way of that. So comfort is a con with most replicas. I actually don't think that's the case with this dark saber, because it has got a nice smooth handle. So there are some exceptions to that. The next thing is customization. So obviously this one has been customized. So my son wanted this, and instead of getting the standard dark saber, we did get the katana ripper blade because he did want this more of a katana. So I'll turn on that light. Cool effect there. You could do this with one that's shaped like a dark saber as well. And, you know, originally we had a katana wrap on this section of the hilt, but it kept coming off because my son uses this pretty heavily, swings it around probably a little too forcefully. He likes to swing this hard enough to make a swoosh sound, and I get worried every time that it's going to come out and break. But so I replaced that with just some electric tape and some diamonds to give the overall effect, which, you know, is very similar to Ahsoka's lightsabers that she uses in Rebels and later in The Mandalorian. And so that gives a better... but the thing is, when you do customize a lightsaber, or a replica lightsaber, it's no longer really a replica of that saber. You know, this no longer really looks like the dark saber. It looks like it's the base is the dark saber, but then with this modification and the katana, it's its own thing now. So if you like that, that's great. But in my opinion, if you're going to customize, then why get a replica? The whole point of the replica is to emulate that exact hilt. And I am physically incapable of not modifying my lightsabers. So that's another reason why I'm not a big fan of that, because I'm going to customize my lightsabers every time. Another big con is availability. So because replica sabers do emulate those hilts from the movies or TV shows or video games, they are very popular, and companies have a really hard time keeping them in stock for a long period of time. Typically, most people aren't collecting lightsabers like I do and some others do. They just want that one lightsaber, and it's usually one that they see in the movie. And so the availability of replicas is usually pretty hit or miss. You know, really got to search to find ones that are available. And even from really reputable companies like Crimson Dawn, they run out of stock really quick. And so you may actually be waiting 2, 3, 4 months for a Graflex, when normally a company like Crimson Dawn gets out their sabers within like a week or two. But because they run out of stock of that particular model, because it's a replica, there is a little bit of an additional wait time. So that I consider a con. The other con, and this is just my personal opinion, well, a lot of this is my personal opinion, but I feel pretty strongly about this. I don't like shelf queens. A shelf queen is a lightsaber that is not used for dueling. It just sits on the shelf. You don't even spin with it, potentially. It's just there to look pretty. I'm not a fan of that. I figure if I'm going to have something like this, I want electronics in it. I want to be able to at least spin with it. And in fact, this is my son's dueling saber. So even though this is more or less a replica, we treat it like it's his beater saber. It is pretty tough. It's big and bulky. It's an ultra saber, so it's actually pretty tough otherwise. But I do have one exception with a shelf queen, and this is, of course, by no means a replica, but I've shown this in another video, but I have a glaive. And this definitely cannot be used for dueling because of the flat acrylic blade. And then this handle is made out of PVC pipe. And so probably not the best for dueling either, but I just really like the way that it looks, and so that's my shelf queen. It's the one exception I've made just because it was fun to build, and it's kind of a relic of when I used to collect ultra sabers. But that's my thoughts on replica sabers. I hope you guys found that informative. Definitely in the comments, let me know how you feel about it. And what's your favorite replica? You know, tell me what character's saber you like the best in the comments. And enjoy.